Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I actually want to start by something that you had raised in your remarks, which is that, part of this conversation is about what value does education give to our nation? How do we make education as valuable to our country? And I think that idea of value, we have to keep in mind, it's not just about the cost and the price tag. And I guess I just want to address this issue about risk sharing. So I'm trying to comprehend this a little bit more in my mind in terms of how do you hold a college, university responsible for, in many ways, some of the personal actions and decisions that a former student could be making, whether or not they can pay back their loans. Dr. Brown, I guess I just want to ask you, I mean, you've talked a lot about just the holistic challenges facing some of the students that are at your institution. What are the different factors that you can imagine would affect an ability for a former student to pay back loans? I would imagine it's not just about the wages, certainly that's part of it, but also about healthcare costs that they might have, emergencies. What are some of the other things you could imagine?
Well, Senator, just to be clear on risk sharing, at our school we accept 30% of our students that apply. Some schools accept 2% or 3%. And so there is a mission of the historically black college and university to serve a larger swath of the country. The economic outcomes, as I said earlier in my statement, are significant. They do better. They achieve social and economic mobility. However, I think the biggest threat to paying back loans are those students who don't complete college.
Yeah.
And I think the data will support that. And the reasons that they don't complete college are often related to a lack of finances. And so again, I would ask that as we consider formulas for risk sharing, you also consider that the risk is not equal among colleges. And if you decide that you will service a larger group, then your risk is obviously going to be higher. The return for the country, however, may be, and I think the data supports this, far greater when you look at the social and economic mobility and the earning power of those students who you took a risk on.
When you're looking at this issue about risk sharing, I mean, to the point you mentioned, I mean, I could see a potential consequence of this being such that, schools may be less, I guess maybe they'd be more hesitant perhaps to admit certain types of students if they have lower economic backgrounds, other types of potential concerns that they might have in terms of the ability for that person to be able to pay back loans. I know there's some talks about offsets there, but Dr. Brown, would that potentially be something that could be an unforeseen consequence?
I think an unintended consequence, and I'm sure it's unintended, but it could happen, is that we become more selective on who we allow to enter school. And that probably should not be the basis for entering college. If someone comes from a low-income or first-generation college students, like many HBCUs service, you would not want that to be a determining factor if you would allow that person to enter college, because your risk goes up. And nor do I believe that HBCUs would do that, given our historical mission of serving those very students.
Yeah, Dr. Galen, I wanted to just go back to you, just kind of get your perspective on this. I am having trouble understanding how it is that we try to single out colleges and universities in terms of that risk when, there's so many other issues. I mean, some of the people I've talked to that struggle to pay back their loans because their parents got sick or they have kids and challenges on that front. Like, there's so many different factors that affect. How do you try to go about teasing that out?
Yeah, absolutely. So those types of factors will tend to be sort of randomly distributed among all colleges. And so if you do kind of like the median random life disasters exemption, I think you account for most of that. What I think the big value of the risk sharing proposals is it makes it so that the college cannot profit from offering an education that leaves the student and the taxpayers worse off. Because right now they can, because they get all that tuition money up front. They get to keep that even if the student never repays the loan. And so that to me is the big advantage of the risk sharing is weeding out that portion of the higher education sector. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like there's gonna be random life circumstances, and I think if you do like a general small exemption like 3%.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I just want to just share, just how how much this could be very damaging in a lot of different ways, and the unintended consequences as mentioned. The other thing I would just want to raise in my final seconds here is just, I think it also has the potential to threaten just the threaten and undermine our tradition of liberal arts education as a whole as well. I mean, part of what we have really profited by in this country is the creativity, the innovation. Not necessarily, I've studied in other countries and seen how they're much more driven towards just specific careers. But I think we benefit from the education, the creativity that's out there. And if we're moving in a direction, I could see how this type of action could potentially put colleges to say, oh, we're going to start to divest in our humanities programs, arts programs, and other things like that, if that's going to, not be as profitable or be a greater risk that we have bringing on those types of students. So I just want this committee to be mindful of that as we proceed along. With that, I'll yield back, Mr. Chair.